Hi everyone, Trina Phoenix here, and today I wanted to get back into the Ascended Masters, and I was drawn to introduce you to this one first, which is Alchemy, and it is Formulas for Self-Transformation, and this is the book. So this is like 4 books in one book. So there's like 4 separate books inside of this book. And this information is, it's beautiful, and I think it's kind of important for what's happening right now. I wanted to give just a quick introduction to who is Saint Germain. And from that, then we'll go into alchemy. And then from alchemy, we're going to go into the secret, mystical origins of the United States. And this is kind of why I'm bringing this forth right now, because this goes into a lot of stories of our history that many of us have never heard or seen before. So when I saw this information, it was just mind-blowing to me, and it really teaches you a lot about what was the meanings and the intentions behind our Constitution, and what were some of these things created, and how were they created, and who might have been involved behind the scenes that we were never made aware of. So first of all, who is this Master Saint Germain? So it starts like this. "Will you have the kindness to tell me," said the Countess V. Georgie, "whether your father was in Venice in about the year 1710? "No, madam," replied the Count, quite unconcerned. "It's very much longer since I lost my father, but I myself was living in Venice at the end of the last and the beginning of the century. I had the honor to pay your court then." "Forgive me, but that's impossible." The Count Saint Germain, "I knew in those days. I was at least 45 years old, and you, outside, are that age still at present." "Madam," replied the Count, smiling, "I am very old." "But then you must be nearly 100 years old." "That is not impossible," Saint Germain replied. Who was the mysterious wonderman of Europe? At the end of the 18th century marked the end of an old order in France, and one man was trying to make the transition as smooth as possible. He was the Count Saint Germain, known throughout Europe as the Wonderman. He dazzled the aristocracies and the royal courts with his youth potions, jewels, and magical feats to engage their attention for a more serious purpose, to warn them of the impending revolution and the bloodbath that soon would follow. At the same time, he used his powers to expand scientific knowledge. In this century, Saint Germain continues to work for freedom and enlightenment of mankind. He has dictated to Mark L. Prophet and Elizabeth Clare Prophet formulas that you can use and practice alchemy for your own liberation. You will learn how to materialize objects from a universal source energy. But the primary purpose of alchemy is not to create wealth or to change lead into gold. Alchemy is a powerful method of transformation within yourself, so powerful that the principles Saint Germain imparts make this the greatest of all self-help books. The basic message is that you are not powerless. You do not have to be a victim of circumstances. You can alter destiny. You can change your life and your nation and your planet. Saint Germain tells you how to do it. He reveals the secrets that he has used for centuries, techniques that you can use today to duplicate his achievements. He tells you how Jesus used alchemy to walk upon the water, to multiply loaves and fishes, changing water into wine, and performing other miracles. He explains how you can. Create mental pictures to materialize objects, including an amethyst Maltese cross. Harness the energy to alter matter. Control your emotions. Get rid of anxiety for good. Look younger and have more energy. Create a cloud of infinite energy to change your life, fulfill your destiny, and heal your planet. Saint Germain on Alchemy contains a 117-page handbook of essential alchemical and spiritual terms. It also includes illustrated sections on Saint Germain as the wonderman of Europe, the mystical origins of the United States of America, the Great Seal of the United States, George Washington's vision of America's trials. Saint Germain on Alchemy illumines and inspires, and it gives you the keys to self-transformation, but they will not do you any good unless you use the alchemical formulas revealed in this book and encrypted in acronym TRY. In the acronym TRY. Okay, Saint Germain, Book of Alchemy. Here we go. Okay, so this is a little bit more about some of the stories of Saint Germain. Okay, the wonderman of Europe. Will you have the kindness to tell me, says the Countess, whether your father was in Venice in the year 1710? No, madam, replied the Count, quite unconcerned. It is very much longer since I lost my father. But I myself was living in Venice at the end of the last and the beginning of this century. I had the honor to pay your court then. Forgive me, but that's impossible. The Count Saint Germain, I knew in those days, was at least 45 years old, and you, at the outside, are that age at present. Madame, replied the Count, smiling, I am very old. But then you must be nearly 100 years old. That is not impossible, Saint Germain replied. He was the wonderman of Europe. He was well known. But was he the lost third son of Prince Ferenc Rákóczi II, the deposed Hungarian ruler, or did he, as the ascended master Saint Germain, materialize a body to give the appearance that he had descended through the royal house of Hungary? His birth, death, and true identity are shrouded in mystery. But one thing is certain. He was highly visible in the royal courts and invisible. He was seen to disappear as he left private quarters of the kings and queens at the Versailles. Without a doubt, his feats as Count Saint Germain are exclamation points across the diaries of the 18th century. The 18th century greats, kings and queens and aristocrats, they all spoke of him. In the court memoirs of Madame de Pompadour, Prince Karl of Hesse, and Madame de Adhémar, he is remembered as un homme extraordinaire, described as a slim but well-proportioned, of medium height, and with pleasant features. He had fascinating eyes which captivated the observing who chanced to study them. He wore diamonds on every finger and on his shoe buckles. Even after his remarkable conversations with the Countess, he did not age. Madame de Adhémar met him in 1789. It was himself in person, yes, with the same countenance as in 1760, while mine was covered with furrows and marks of decrepitude, aging, ageless, a mystery man. There is nothing, it seems, he could not do. He was admired as a great philosopher, diplomat, scientist, healer, artist, and musician. He knew history so well that it seemed he had actually experienced the events. Madame recalled that sometimes he recounted anecdotes of the Count of the Valois, a French royal house of 1382 to 1589, or of princes still even more remote, with such precise accuracy in every detail as almost to create the illusion that he had actually been an eyewitness to what was being narrated. His knowledge extended not only back in time, but also around the globe. He had traveled the world over. De Pompadour wrote, and the king lent a willing ear to the narratives of his voyages over Asia and Africa, and to his tales about the courts of Russia, Turkey, and Austria. He spoke at least 12 languages so fluently that everywhere he went, he was accepted as a native. These include French, German, English, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, and Eastern languages. He learned the royal and the oriental scholars have proved the knowledge of Count Saint Germain, who wrote a countess at Louis XV's court. The former found him more apt in the languages of Homer and Virgil than they themselves. With the latter he spoke Sanskrit, Chinese, Arabic in such a manner as to show them that he had made a lengthy stay in Asia. He was with General Clive in India in 1755, where he said he learned to melt jewels. At the court of Shah in Persia from 1737 to 1742, Monsieur de Saint Germain exhibited his skill at precipitating and perfecting precious gems, particularly diamonds. He also traveled to Japan. He told Madame de Adamar, there is no telling where else he visited, for he would appear and reappear unpredictably. He would do this all over Europe. And yet there was a purpose behind all that the wonderman did, and his wonders went far beyond mere genius. He was skilled in healing and the use of medicinal herbs. Some have speculated that it was Saint Germain's use of herbs combined with his simple eating habits that prolonged his life. Prince Karl of Hesse wrote, he thoroughly understood herbs and plants. He invented medicines of which he constantly made use, and which prolonged his life and his health. He gave an elixir to Madame de Georgie, which made her keep looking 25 for 25 years. According to the contemporary accounts, she lived so long that she came to be called the old everlasting countess. Saint Germain also prescribed an herb tea for the health of the Russian army, and he offered a cure to Jacques de Casanova from an acute disease in 3 days. But the rogue declined the drugs, not trusting anybody, not even the most trusty of alchemists, having himself swindled many. The Count was a virtuoso on both the piano and the violin, as well as an accomplished painter, poet, and artisan. Wherever he traveled, he was welcomed as a scholar, statesman. He formed secret societies, He was a leading figure in the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, and the Knights Templar. He penned the occult classics, the most holy Trino Sophia. Oh my God, I didn't know that he wrote that. Oh my gosh, wow. He wrote the Holy Trino Sophia. Wow. Using a mixture of modern languages and ancient hieroglyphs. Saint Germain never confirmed or denied anything that was said about him. Instead, he would respond with a smile or studied the evasiveness. His skill as an alchemist was praised by Louis XV, who provided him a laboratory and a residence at the royal castle of Chambord, and his alchemical demonstrations were nothing short of miraculous, according to the chronicles. Madame de Hust, who was a femme de chambre, I don't know what that is, to Madame Pompadour, writes some length of Saint Germain's marvels. Her mentors tell us that in 1757, the king ordered a mid-sized diamond, which had a flaw in it. He brought it to him. After having it weighed, His Majesty said to the Count, "The value of this diamond is as it is, and with the flaw in it, it is 6,000 lirs. Without the flaw, it would be worth at least 10,000. Will you undertake to make me a gainer of 4,000? Saint Germain examined it very attentively and said, "It is possible. It may be done. I will bring it to you again in a month." At the time appointed, the comet Saint Germain brought back the diamond without a spot and gave it to the king. It was wrapped in a cloth of anethos, which he took off. The king had it weighed immediately, and he had found it very little diminished. His Majesty sent it then to his jeweler, without telling him anything that had passed. The jeweler gave him 9,600 lirs, or levies, whatever that was called, to the king. However, sent forth the diamond back again. He said he would keep it as a curiosity. At one European court, the 18th century, Merlin requested that several bones from a deer and browse of a tree be brought back to him. When presented with these ingredients, he slipped into a large palace dining room. Several moments later, he reappeared and invited guests to follow him. When the doors were opened, all were astounded. Inside the room was a forest with deers grazing around in a lushly laden board of haute cuisine. Wow. Wow. So he asked several bones from a deer and boughs of a tree, so the limbs, the boughs of a tree, be brought to him. And with those ingredients, he manifested a forest with live deer and hot cuisine for all. Very interesting. With similar ease, Saint Germain accomplished the alchemist's dream, the changing of base metals into gold. In 1763, Count Karl Cobenzl wrote in a letter to Saint Germain, "Perfected under my own eyes the transmutation of iron into a metal as beautiful as gold, and at least as good for all goldsmiths' works." The Marquis reported seeing Saint Germain change a silver 6-frame piece into gold. Casanova wrote of a paralleled experiment in which Saint Germain changed a 12 sols piece of gold into a coin. However, he thought it was a trick. He hinted to Saint Germain that he had substituted one for the other. Saint Germain rebuked him. Those who are capable of entertaining doubts of my work are not worthy to speak to me. And he bowed. He bowed then to the unbeliever, and then he told him to leave his laboratory at once and for good. The Count was not only an alchemist, but an Eastern adept, displaying yogic behaviors, meditation, and in a lotus posture, and calming animals by his fiery spirit. One Dutch admiral wrote, sometimes he fell into trance, and when he again recovered, he said he had passed the time while he lay unconscious in far-off lands. Sometimes he disappeared for a considerable time, and then suddenly reappeared. And let it be understood that he had been in another world, in communication with the dead. Moreover, he prided himself on being able to tame bees and to be able to make snakes listen to music. A master of masters, he was not a charlatan, nor was he a figment of the imagination. He mentioned in the letters of Frederick the Great, Casanova, and even he appears in the newspapers of the day in the London Chronicle of June 1760, a Florentine paper, De Notili de Mondo, in July of 1770, and also in the Gazette of the Netherlands. He was entrusted with the state secrets of several countries, indicating that he enjoyed the long-standing trust of all those he dealt with. He was sent on negotiating missions by Louis XV, one of the first to practice the secret diplomacy. The archives of France contain evidence that the English, Dutch, and Peruvian statesmen of his time regarded the Count as an authority of many fields. He appeared to be more intimately acquainted with the secrets of each, more acquainted with the secrets of each court than they themselves. Voltaire remarked that Saint Germain knew the secrets of the prime ministers of England, France, and Austria. Although many suspected him of being a rogue and a swindler, it is clear that money was not his object. He was always very well provided for. And Madame Pompadour, writes that the Count gave the king beautiful paintings and passed out diamonds and jewels with astonishing liberality, means he would give out many of them. Clearly not the behavior of a treasure hunter. Indeed, he was a philanthropist. Prince Karl of Hesse described him as the friend of humanity, wishing for money only that he might give it to the poor, a friend to animals. His heart was concerned only with the happiness of others. Wherever he was personally known, he left a favorable impression behind. And he remembers, and there are many remembrance of many good, and sometimes of many very noble deeds. Many poor, father or family, many a charitable institution was helped by him in secret. In Studies in Alchemy, Saint Germain explains that he actually precipitated goods to give to the poor, when serving in Europe, to dissipate some of the poverty and the confusion so prevalent there. He writes, I did use universal alchemy to produce a substance which, although temporary in nature, supplied many human needs. But why all of these extravagance at court? What was he trying to prove? He was trying precisely, with wit and humor and his prophetic, masterful presence, to galvanize an age in the face of the inevitable passing of the old order. His plan of action was to establish a United States of Europe before the pulling of the ripcord of the bloody French Revolution. This should leave nothing bad or good of the royal houses of Europe. Another of Saint Germain's aims was to accelerate the progress of science and technology to lift man into a capacity for greater spiritual awareness. At times he played the part of patron saint of the Industrial Revolution. Count Karl Kobenzoll witnessed his development of mass production techniques. Among them were bleaching flax to look like Italian silk, dyeing and preparing skins, which surpassed all the Moroccos in the world. The most perfect tanning and dyeing of skills, carried on to a perfection hitherto unknown. The wood of the most brilliant colors, penetrating all through and through, with the commonest ingredients, and consequently at a very moderate price. And believe it or not, Saint Germain actually set up a hat factory. He also began mass producing his own various inventions while sponsoring other technological advancements. I am in much need in Constantinople than in England, he told one memoir writer, there to prepare two inventions which you will have in the next century, trains and steamboats. His object seemed to be to assist the rise of the middle class, while convincing the monarchy to make a smooth transition into the modern age. While he accomplished the former, the apathy of the ruling classes and the intrigue of their corrupt advisers thwarted his success in the latter. The monarchs, while in the admiration of his miraculous accomplishments, pronounced them interesting, always willing to be entertained by him, but they were not easily prodded into action. When it came to taking his advice, they politely ignored him and their ministers. Jealous to the quick, they despised him. At a case in point, Louis XV's aborted secret mission, he sent Saint Germain as his envoy to Amsterdam to negotiate a peace treaty ending the war between the French and Australia alliance and the English and Prussians. Too soon, the French ambassador in the Amsterdam, he got wind of it. He was offended that the king would employ an obscure foreigner in his stead, and complained to the foreign minister. The Duce de Choiseul, who immediately sent out orders for Saint Germain's arrest. The Duke's desire was not for peace, at least not then, and especially not peace for which he could not claim credit. The next day, before the king and his council exposed the mission, I am convinced that no one here would be bold enough to desire to negotiate a treaty of peace without the knowledge of your Majesty's Minister for Foreign Affairs. The king, as usual, took the course of least resistance. He neither challenged his minister nor championed Saint Germain, and he remained silent as to his own part in the affair. However, discredited his peace mission, and it was aborted. The count did manage to avoid arrest, perhaps by the warning of the king, or more likely by his own foreknowledge. The same treatment continued under Louis XVI. But this time Saint Germain was prepared. First he sought the audience with the Queen. He was presented and recorded at the scene. He spelled it out for Marie Antoinette, the precise details of the terror to come, and he begged her to warn Louis. He said some years yet will pass by in a deceitful calm. Then from all the parts of the kingdom it will spring up, men greedy for vengeance, and for power and for money. They will overthrow all in their way. Civil war will burst out with all of its horrors, and it will bring in its train murder, pillage, exile. Then it will be regretted that I was not listened to. He told the Queen that he wanted to see the king without the knowledge of the Monsieur de Monopas, saying, the king's chief adviser, he is my enemy. Besides, I rank him among those who will further the ruin of this kingdom, not from malice, but from incapacity. Stating his availability at their Majesty's command, Monsieur de Saint Germain took his leave of the Queen. He left Paris, heading out of the country, having told Madame Adhémar that he knew the king would speak to Maurepas. He had no wish to be thrown into the Bastille and to have to resort to a miracle to get out. She protested that the king might not, in that case. He replied that he would be back in time. Marie Antoinette went straight to the king, who then quizzed Madame d'Adhémar about the count, saying that he had seriously alarmed the queen. Sure enough, Louis asked for the advice of Maurepas, who told him that Saint Germain was a rogue, whereupon the self-serving adviser went immediately to the residence of Madame d'Adhémar to arrest the wonderman, Saint Germain. And Saint Germain was nowhere to be found. No sooner had he declared his intent to lock up Saint Germain in the Bastille than the door to her room opened, and the thermagist entered. Approaching Maurepas, he said, le Comte de Maurepas, the king summoned you to give him good advice, and you think only of maintaining your own authority. In opposing yourself to my seeing the monarch, you are losing the monarchy, for I have but a limited time to give to France, and the time is over. I shall not be seen here again until after 3 consecutive generations have gone down to the grave. I told the queen that I was permitted to tell her my revelations to the king. They would have been more complete. It is unfortunate that you should have intervened between His Majesty and me. I shall have nothing to reproach myself with when this horrible anarchy devastates all of France. As to all of these calamities, you will not see them, but you, too, have prepared them, and they will be sufficient memorial to you. Expect no homage from posterity. Frivolous and incapable minister, you will be ranked among those who caused the ruin of the empire. M. de Saint Germain, having spoken this without taking a breath, turned towards the door again, shut it, and disappeared. Madame d'Adhémar writes, all efforts to find the count failed. And the lesson is wisely and painfully learned. An alchemist of the greatest mastery, even the adept of the centuries, having only the best of intentions and the solution to global problems and the rise and the fall of nations, must bow to the free will of mortals. He may advise, but not command. And when ignored, he is obligated to withdraw. Saint Germain continued to write letters to the Queen, warning of the impending debacle. But once the crisis had reached a certain point, there was nothing that he could do to turn back the revolution that they had been building since the death of that master statesman, Louis XV. Several years later, just before the storm broke, the storm. Interesting that they used that word. Didn't our president just warn us about an oncoming storm? So, several later, just before the storm broke, Saint Germain met Madame d'Adhémar, and again, early one morning in a chapel in the Rousquelettes in Paris, he predicted the doom of the king and the queen, and said that it was too late to save them. The following is her recording of the conversation. What did I tell you? And the Queen too. That M.D. Maurepas would let everything be lost. Because he compromised everything. I was Cassandra, or a prophet of evil. And now, how do you stand? Ah, Comet, your wisdom will be useless. Madam, he who sows the wind reaps the whirlwind. Jesus said so in the gospel, perhaps not before me, but at any rate his words remain written. And to the people, and people could only have profited by mine. Again, I said, trying to smile. But he, without replying to my exclamation, I said, I have written it to you. I can do nothing. My hands are tied by stronger than myself. There are periods of time when to retreat is impossible. Others, when he has pronounced, and the decree will be executed. Into this we are entering. Will you see the Queen? No, she is doomed. Doomed to what? Death. Oh, this time I could not keep back a cry. I rose on my seat. My hands repulsed the comet, and in a trembling voice I said, And you too? You. What? You too? Yes, I like Cazalet. Like Cazot? You know. What you do not even suspect. Return to the palace. Go tell the Queen to take heed of herself, that this day will be fatal to her. There is a plot. Murder is permeated. You fill me with horror, but the comet, Saint Germain, deestating, has promised. He will take fright, and he will hide himself, but de Lafayette, a balloon puffed out with wind, even now they are settling what to do with him. Whether he shall be an instrument or a victim by noon will be decided. Monsieur, I said, you could render great services to our sovereigns if you would, and if I cannot. How? Yes, if I cannot, I thought I should not be listened to. The hour of repose was past, and the decrees of the providence must be fulfilled. In plain words, what do they want? The complete ruin of the Bourbons. They will expel them from all their thrones they occupy, and in less than a century they will return to the rank of simple private individuals in their indifferent branches. And France, kingdom, republic, empire, mixed governments, tormented, agitated, torn from clever tyrants, she will pass to others who are ambitious without merit. She will be divided, parceled out, cut up, and there are no pleonasms that I use. The coming times will bring about the overthrow of the empire. Pride will sway or abolish distinctions, not from virtue, but from vanity. It is through vanity that they will come back to them. The French, like children playing with handcuffs and slings, will play with titles, honors, ribbons. Everything will be a toy to them. Even to the shoulder belts of the National Guard. The greedy will devour the finances, some filthy millions now from a deceit, and in the name of which a revolution is made. Well, under the dictatorship of the philanthropists, the rhetoricians, and the fine talkers, the state debt will exceed several thousand millions. He took his leave of her, and then with these words, I will take up my part again, and I leave you. I have a journey to take to Sweden. A great crime is brewing there. I am going to try to prevent it. His Majesty's Gustavus III interests me. He is worth more than he is renowned. Departing the small chapel, the wonderman disappeared. Madame de Adhemar, his confidential servant, who had been stationed at the door of the church, saw no one pass. She herself, stunned by Saint Germain's words, remained at the chapel and decided not to warn the Queen that day, but to wait until the end of the week. But then it was too late. Saint Germain's prophecy came true in astonishing detail. The next time Madame de Adhemar saw him was at the Palace de la Révolution, October 16th, 1793, at the beheading of Marie Antoinette. The Master was with her in the end, as he had been with her from the beginning, watching over her from the moment that she had arrived in France from Austria to become the ill-fated French Queen. Wow. The ill-fated French Queen. What a bad rap. Next, Saint Germain backed Napoleon in a final attempt to establish the United States of Europe. La Petite Caporal took Saint Germain's power, but not his advice, and sought to use it in self-gain, exceeding the master's instructions, whereupon Saint Germain withdrew, as by now he has wont to do, leaving the ambitious and fool-hearted Napoleon to his Waterloo. Old words. Meanings every time he tried to do something good and give power and instruction and wisdom to people, they would use it for their own benefit and their own destruction, time and time again. For Saint Germain, this was the coup de grace, his opportunity to set aside the retribution due to an age had passed. And so the mystic messenger departed from Europe, henceforth until his return in 1981. The only voice of fate the continent would hear or heed would be karma. Karma. While Napoleon was still a child, Franz Graffer recalls out, saying, one needs to have studied the pyramids. I have studied towards the end of the century, and I shall disappear out of Europe. I will betake myself to the region of the Himalayas, and I will rest. I must rest. Exactly in 85 years I will be people again, and they will set their eyes upon me. Farewell for now. I love you. In rejection of Saint Germain by the crowned heads of Europe, this caused him to depart from the visible world. And the words of Jesus' lamentation might well have been his very own. O Jerusalem, O Jerusalem, thou hast killest the prophets, and stoned them which were sent unto thee. How often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathered her chicks under her wings, and ye would not. As he himself has said, thus it is ever with truthful people, deceivers are welcomed. But the fie upon whoever says that which will come to pass. In his devotion to the cause of the world and to freedom, Saint Germain has been working diligently on many fronts. Having failed in securing the attentions of the courts of France and the other crowned heads of Europe, he has said through the 20th century messengers, Mark L. Prophet, I turned myself into the perfection of mankind at large. and I recognized that there were many who were hungering and thirsting after the same righteousness. They would indeed be filled with the concept of a perfect union, which would inspire them to take dominion over the new world and create a union among the sovereign states. Thus, the United States was born as a child of my heart, and the American Revolution was the means of bringing freedom in all of its glory into manifestation from the east unto the west. Even before the debacle in France, Saint Germain was busy forming a more perfect union. Out of the 13 colonies, according to the traditions of the July 4th, 1776, he inspired upon one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence in an impassioned speech, urging the patriots to sign that document. In a meeting at Cambridge, Massachusetts, he, the mysterious old professor, Master Saint Germain, inspired the designing of our flag. Throughout the Revolution, he has been overshadowed. General George Washington, and when the time came, the anointed Master Mason, the first President of the United States of America. True to his word, Saint Germain reappeared in the latter 19th century to assist the Masters El Morya, K.H. Kuhutmi, and Serapis Bey in the founding of the Theosophical Societies. In 1930, Saint Germain contacted Guy and Edna Ballard, giving them the initiations and the revelations they recorded in the books, The Unveiled Mysteries and The I Am Presence, the magic I Am, and that's these books that I will be reading to you guys too. So, Saint Germain, according to a lot of the stories, was highly involved in the creating of America, and that was to stop what was happening in Europe with the kings and the queens and the takeovers and the tyranny. Guys, we're looking at this as it's happening again. Once again, it's here again. So, in 1958, the Ascended Master El Morya, I've always called him El Morey. So that when you hear El Morey, it's El Morya. So, but El Morey might come out of my mouth, so interchangeably. So, Saint Germain's behalf founded the Summit Lighthouse in Washington, D.C. through Mark L. Prophet, and continued publishing of the Ascended Master's teachings, and to maintain weekly contact with their Shilas throughout the world through the letters called the Pearls of Wisdom. Under the canopy of the summit of the lighthouse, Saint Germain then sponsored the Keepers of the Flame fraternity, providing the graded lessons of cosmic law to those who would join him in keeping the flame of life for mankind. He dictated studies in alchemy in 1962, intermediate studies in alchemy followed in 1970. The trilogy of the threefold flame of life was delivered by the Master as a transition between the two, whereas the alchemy of the Word represents his tutoring of our souls by revelations and understandings communicated during the past 25 years of our services together. Saint Germain, by his own admission, has never ceased in this behind-the-scenes activity to contact souls of light, not only in Europe and America, but throughout the world. He has been an unceasing effort to prevent World War III, nuclear holocausts, and the dire predictions of Nostradamus, the perils of Fatima, the prophecy, and a host of ills knocking at the door of the nations, whose rumblings recall Jesus' visions of these end times recorded in the Gospels in the book of Revelation. If the captains and the kings and the powerful and the weak-willed have ignored this world spokesman for freedom, this alchemist of the sacred fire par excellence, keepers of the flame of liberty in every nation, they have not. At one point in his career, having lost faith in the ruling classes and the ability they might have had to change the course of history, Saint Germain was heard to exclaim, "Oh, for 10,000 scrub women who will faithfully give to the cause. With these, I will show you how to change the world through divine truth. And so it shall come to pass. Through the common people, whom the Lord and I and Abraham Lincoln all love, Saint Germain's mission is to once again bring forth individual freedom, peace, and enlightenment to this earth. He continues unchecked and without any parallel in the history of mankind. His is a message and a worldwide grassroots movement. He calls this the coming revolution into higher consciousness. Oh my God, I was told it was going to be called the map of divine well-being, or the principles of divine well-being. And this is funny, a revolution in higher consciousness. Same concepts, different words, but similar in vibration. So every lover of freedom on earth, every spirit quickened by the freedom's flame, deserves to know his name, to make contact with his heart, to study his writings, and to support this cause, which is the cause of all the people upon planet Earth. To that end, this little book, Saint Germain on Alchemy, is released to the world with greatest joy this Thanksgiving Day, 1985. Praise God who sent beloved Saint Germain to free our captives' hearts in Jesus' name. Elizabeth Clare, Prophet. So that is an introduction to Master Saint Germain. And the reason he's called Master Saint Germain is because he operates within mastery. So he is a master because he's a master of alchemy and a master of the alchemical sciences and a master of the spiritual, mystical mysteries that operate our world and operate all that we see. So through his desperate, dire trying to educate the ones in power, he realized that their greed and their corruption was so deep that it may never be accomplished through these means. So this is when, in the 1970s and 80s, he decided to bring his messages out through the prophets, and that this instruction and this guidance could be written down for all who wished to create a better world. And he laid out a map of how things kind of came into position and how we can make things go into a new, better position. And it's so funny because the same concept of a new world, this is the same concept. It's a new world order because it's a global principle. It's meant to include the entire world. And that's why the Dark Cabal have taken their title and used it as the New World Order because they want you to see it as negative. So they've programmed that intentionally. So every time you hear New World Order, now you'll feel a negative connotation to it. And actually, a New World Order means a new world of organization for us as a species. And if we get to do the organizing of our world, this world would be a beautiful place to live in because we all like so many of the same things. Through our diversity, we all kind of want the same things. People we love and care about, to be able to spend time with them, to be in a world where we don't have hunger and people have shelter and food. Children are safe and they can play. We all kind of want the same things, the majority. So it's time now for us, the majority, to come together, start to really think of some creative ways where we can come together even stronger as a human race and really start to love and support one another instead of worrying about taking care of yourself. Start focusing on how are we going to take care of each other. Because this is how we truly ascend. is a shift of vibration, and it comes into that energy of now learning how to truly know thyself and love thyself. And when you come into that knowing, you are so connected to the unity of all life. And through that unity of life and the connection to the I am presence that is within all of us, that turns into the greatest source of love of all. So we do the work inside so we can change the world outside. This is how it's done. And this will start to teach us how to get there and show you the different ways to get into alchemical states of being. So here we go. I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. We're just getting into the foundation, and we're getting ready next to get into some alchemy. And then we will be getting into the secret creation of the United States of America and the Masonic foundations that are underneath it, and that they were done to save us. And like, again, power and greed and corruption take very good things and turn them and make them bad through this tyrannical corruption energy that goes at the top of extreme power. So the like we've been taught, Freemasons are bad. No, they are not. Freemason means free sons of May. They also had recognition of the divine goddess and the balanced creation of the trifold flame. They understood God, goddess. They understood the balance needed between the heart and the mind, between spirit and science. They knew both of them were one. And like I said, these things have been suppressed and taken away because they do not want you to know these things. So now even the Freemasons, we have negative connotations because, yes, they've been taken over by darkness. But this is not what it was created to be. Same with the Knights Templars. These things were taken over by darkness, and the ones that were standing in the light were taken out. So all of this stuff has been twisted and turned. So now it's time to see how it all started. Where did it come from? What were its origins? And what were the belief systems behind their foundations? So this is where we're going to go, and we're going to learn a lot about Lady Liberty. So it's very beautiful information, and I hope it really helps you guys understand our world. It really helped me understand a lot, and it's wonderful to have this kind of wisdom. You know, they say, lovers of the truth shall set you free. And it does. It really does. So it's a little painful too, though. So get ready for that, because it kind of shakes your reality up a little bit. So know that that's okay. And just give yourself some time to process, to look at things from different viewpoints. Because there's some different ones we'll be looking at in this series. So I love you all very much. And thank you so much for being here with me. I love learning and expressing and just being a part of this family. You guys are the best thing in my world. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I love every moment I get to spend with you. And thank you so much for all of my birthday wishes. So it is actually today, and it's the 16th. And you guys just filled my whole world with joy. So much gratitude. Thank you. You made my day the greatest solar return as of yet. So thank you, my soul tribe. I love you more than you can ever know. So I'll see you on the next one. And again, thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. And thank you for what I can feel from you in my own heart. It gives me strength. So thank you. So much love. Namaste and much gratitude to you all. Have a beautiful, blessed day. BLEST. It's the best. I love you. Bye.